long time now, but
Only got a man.
Okay. Right.
and he's watching my kids. Well, he has a daughter, so they're all kind of playing and hanging out. And I told him like 8. Is that should like? And he said it's fine. Like, don't rush or anything. But
Yeah, that should be fine. I mean,
okay.
we just chilling.
We
know?
just chilling.
Yeah.
We just keeping it real. Like that's the word of the day.
We just getting our groove back, like Stella.
Getting our groove back. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna intro us real quick because we are live. Hello, welcome to Two Blacks and a Mexican. This is a Mexican and also Two Blacks, a chill stream. That was my tentative title for this. And we're just, just chilling. So it has been a while since the three of us have been on camera in any public way whatsoever. So welcome. So we're going to talk about a few things, but we're not planning this out too much. If you happen to stop by, I'm not didn't do too much to promote this, to be honest, because I just figured we just do it and see where it goes. But if you do pop in, feel free to ask a question or comment or say whatever you will, and we'll respond. If it's something cool, if it's something dumb, then we'll probably ignore it. But we appreciate you being here if you are here. So the one thing that we definitely all saw, and that's probably what we should start with, was Dune. And Miles was talking about earlier how like weird it is to think that like in internet time it's like old for us to talk about a movie that just came out last month and is still in theaters.
This month was it, or I guess at the end of last month? Yeah.
Like very recent release.
Mm-hmm.
But in internet world, like people have moved
over.
On.
Yeah, it's over. It's like you got like a few days of being hot, and then that's it. Like it's over.
We should have put little cobwebs on ourselves, like the little Halloween cobweb.
Oh yeah.
That's how old this is.
It's like we're stuck in a time warp. So Tawny, so I guess to give context to our relationship with Dune, Tawny has like a very, very deep relationship with this story. Whereas Miles and I think
I'm still reading the book. I'm still getting through
it. I first read it earlier this year, the book. Tawny sort of reinvigorated. I bought the book and then kind of let it sit there. And then Tawny was like, read it, fool. And I said, okay, I'll read it, Miss Tawny. And so I read the book. I really enjoyed it. It inspired me creatively in a lot of ways. And I got to it was one of those things where you're like, oh, that's where that comes from type of thing. Mm-hmm. And so then this movie came out. Tawny, did you ever watch I'm guessing you did, the original Dune movie and all that?
That's actually so one of the things I was thinking about just in sort of like how to talk about the movie is it's really hard for I feel like this movie has lived in my imagination since the David Lynch movie 1984, and I don't think I watched it when I was 5, which is about how old I was in 1984. But my grandma had like a VHS, when you used to record shit off of HBO, back when everybody was first really excited about VCRs.
That's how I saw Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, my dad was the king of that. Like he had everything recorded off HBO.
Everything recorded off HBO, and I don't know who was watching it at my grandma's house even exactly, but I remember just the few things that stand out. Okay, the dachshund just jumped on my lap.
It's time.
That's Petey.
Oh, hey.
But I remember being horrified by Baron Harkonnen. This is a child being like, what is going on? in that movie, he's not an attractive man by any stretch in this version, but in the Lynch, he's disgusting. He has all these like pustules all over his face, and they really got out of the movie goes out of its way to, like, even more so than the book, show the like sort of moral, decrepitude and rot of this whole Harkonnen family. In my head, I always read Harkonnen because I think that's how they say it in the Lynch.
That's how I read it too. When they said it in the movie, I was like,
it's correct though. This is the correct. It's Harkonnen, and I know that, but in my head, I still say, like, I still read Harkonnen. And I remember like the guild agent, like the weird in the Lynch, like the weird floating, the guild navigator who's been all warped by his addiction to spice. I remember the box of pain. There's all these images in my head. There's stuff that's like once you get into kind of the desert, I feel like I was less interested in that part than all of this stuff that happens at the beginning of the movie. And I had this deep abiding crush for Kyle MacLachlan for a while because of I know that's a little bit embarrassing because he has that weird haircut in the movie, but yeah, like it's been part of my imagination for a long time. And then I read it as an older teenager, and I read it again. I've read it a bunch of times, and I read a few of the sequel books that come after it. I watched at least part of that horrific Sci-Fi Channel. Have you guys ever seen that one?
No, I didn't even know. Like, there was another one.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a mini series, and then I think they do the next couple of books too, which I didn't see. So, but as much as that I think that version tries to be really true to the novel and capture a lot more of the story. It's why it's a mini series as opposed to a movie. But like just horrible production value, like the worst costume design I've ever seen, like where it's just laughable, distracting, like it's so bad. Like I can't, and people who are fans are like, oh, but that one's truer to the novel. I'm like, I don't care. Those are stupid fucking costumes, and I can't see anything past that. Yeah,
it's like the Stephen King Shining miniseries where they're like, this is the accurate to the novel version. It's like, I don't care. Those walking bushes look stupid.
Some stuff, there's a reason stuff gets left out of the translation. I mean, and I was a student of mine who's really into movies. He's so cute. I love this kid. I promised him, I've never seen It's a Wonderful Life. I promised him I would watch it because that's one of his favorite movies. But
hey, you've never seen that?
I've never seen it. No, I'm gonna watch it.
I've never seen that either.
Oh, that's project.
Yeah.
But
I got a long list of movies that like are homework movies that I just have to watch.
I actually saw that. I was later in life when I watched that from beginning to end. I actually was really captivated by it for some reason. Like I was like, man, I really like this movie. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but
I've seen it parodied like 7 million times.
So what you see in the parody is like the last 7 minutes of the movie. Like most of that movie, like anyway, we don't have to
get Mario's a big fan. Our friend of the show, Mario.
Is
a huge fan. That's like maybe his favorite movie. I hope I'm not taking liberties, but he always kind of cracks a joke about waterworks every single time he watches it. So this kid was asking me like, oh, when things are adapted, is it always better when the movie tries to be really super faithful to the source material? And I was like, no, like there's some stuff that works for the printed page that just doesn't work on screen. And I would say the animate topiary bushes in The Shining are probably in that category. Like, it just doesn't work.
It's crazy. It always stood out to me because what's weird is they're both the best and worst thing about that miniseries, because earlier in the miniseries, they do it and they move when he's not looking. And I actually kind of liked that. Like when he turns around, they're closer and then it gets weird. And like, but then at the end, they just show them walking. And it looks so stupid. It's like, you ruined it. Like the one thing I thought was cool, you ruined it.
I'm never like, the people that are super just aggressive about movies that are adapted from books or whatever, or comic books, whatever, like they're just extra mad that it's not exactly the, like, what is wrong with you? Like, yo,
such a
like
specific thing to be aggressive about.
Yeah, so, like, because people get pissed, man. Like when it's like, this is not the book, like they didn't follow this. It's like, okay, it's an adaptation, man. Like it's not like beat for beat. First of all, like if I did read the book initially, I wouldn't want it to be exactly what they, did in the book, because then I know everything. Like,
yeah,
which kind of takes, some of the. I want to be surprised to some degree watching.
It's
stuff,
a totally different medium, like the message and the medium have to match.
It's hard, and it's hard because there's so much in a novel that is happening in the characters' heads, and like there's so many things you just can't communicate on screen. You have to sort of infer it through action. And like I just finished reading Invisible Man, or Ralph Ellison, and that book, that's a phenomenal. That's my first time reading it. That book is phenomenal. And I like sort of was curious about, because I saw that I guess Hulu sort of greenlit an adaptation of it like 4 or 5 years ago, and it never happened. And I was thinking, like, man, like the book is adaptable for sure, but like you would have to. There's so much happening in his head in that book, so much, and it almost reads like a work of philosophy kind of thing, where it's very clearly sort of he's going through these different iterations of his evolution. He starts off as a man who almost hates being Black and is like kind of constantly sort of been trained to see whiteness as something to aspire to,
as we all have been.
Right. And so you see him on his journey, and that it's one of those books where the opening scene is later in the story, and then you go back and that where he's headed, he's headed away from that, because literally the prologue is him like punching a white guy in the face, and then it goes back and you see who he was, and you're like, oh, well, how did he end up, and then you go on this journey, and a lot of the stuff that happens is so like metaphysical, and just like there's parts of the book where I'm like, I don't even fully know what's happening, and then he sort of acknowledges he doesn't fully know what's happening.
And
in my head, it's like, how do you adapt things like that? And I actually kind of thought that about Dune when I was reading it. I was like, what was interesting about this new adaptation that I'm not sure about the 84 one is that there were scenes where like Paul was seeing things, and my wife, who hasn't read the book, was like, wait, is that happening now, or what's going on? And I remember thinking that when I was reading the book, and I was like, wait, is he experiencing this now, or is it in the future? Because I know he sees things that are in the future, and he actually acknowledges in the book in his head that he doesn't even always know. And I thought that was neat, because it's like the idea that you're with him.
Possible futures too, like, and that's the
right
that's one thing that, like, I think has been pointed out, is that Lynch, like the Lynch version, in a lot of ways, like it's a complete movie, right? But that's a lot of that is because it leans into the basically the white savior story. Like that's the arc of that character in that movie. They don't explore, which is what I really was hoping to see in this one. There's that scene where they're in the car and they're driving through through like the city. I can't remember which city it is, on Arrakis, like when they are, just arrived, and they're the people are like, Mahdi, and they're like, he's like, what does that mean? And it's like, oh, they see you as a savior. And like, it's acknowledged that the reason that structure is there is because the Bene Gesserit had been working their little political magic and planting the seeds, like the structure of that, in case, and that's such an important part of the book. Like, and what you're not supposed to look at Paul and be like, he's the savior of the desert people. Like, he's all tormented because he doesn't know what the hell he's supposed to do. And he can see this horrible potential future, unfold. The jihad, they say, they don't use the word jihad in the movie, But if you guys remember in the book, like Jihad, he has these nightmarish visions of people like waving the Atreides banner and just committing like atrocities, in his name.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of it unfolds,
How did you feel about the part one of it all? Like the idea that it's being broken up the way it is.
It was weird.
Yeah, I was kind of annoyed by that, low key. Like just because that's just kind of a Hollywood thing now, because we just kind of know there's going to be sequels of 90% of everything, I guess, that comes out that's successful, at least. But I mean, I guess they sort of anticipated this being a sequel in clearly, but I mean, they say it immediately. So, but then I know I struggle with that because I know I'm getting an incomplete story. And
very much,
it's super incomplete. And listen, it's fine. The only problem is like, well, then this worked better as a series to me than it did as because it's so dense anyway, and there's so many things to sort of threads to sort of follow.
So many.
They would be better served had this been a series, like an HBO series, like
a
Game of Thrones. Yeah, like Game of Thrones level production or whatever, but a series on HBO where they could take their time and sort of spend time with each character to establish whatever they need to establish. By the end of this movie, I was like, wait, what? That was it? Wait, what just happened? Like, it just sort of ends on a weird, it ends like that would have been the end of an episode. And I'd have been like, oh, okay, I want to see what happens on the next episode. That was a long ass episode.
Yeah. See you in 2 years.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't typically, I don't generally care for that. Like, I don't mind it. It just depends. Like, you sit through quite a bit to not have a resolute ending. Like, it's kind of, in this case, it doesn't work that well to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I was wondering where they were gonna cut it. Like I was like, is it gonna like, and I guess that like where it does cut off does make some sort of sense in terms of
right.
But it just felt like I was watching it and with my significant other. And
I love how you keep saying it that way.
And I don't know what's the word. There's no good word for it. It's all boyfriend, but I'm 42, so that sounds dumb.
You Cali, y'all say partner out there. That's that Cali.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. I can't bring myself to do it.
My partner.
It sounds so impersonal.
Yeah, there's something weird about it, but I'll find a good one. But we were just like, oh, it's over.
So okay.
Yeah, and he's he's a big fan of the book too. So we were like super looking forward to watching it, and it, overall, and it was really hard to take it in the first time, just because, like I said, like I have all this other stuff happen. Like you can't help when you know the source material fairly well, like, but just be comparing, even as much as you'd like to shut that off. So it took me like, I had to look at it again and really kind of take it in to really get a sense of what it was in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, this will work a lot better when you can watch both movies back to back, I think. I mean, just infinitely better, which so much better that I think this was a mistake. Like, I feel like, look, you give a guy like Denis Villeneuve a property like this, you kind of have to decide you're going to give him both movies right off the bat. Because otherwise, this whole thing of like, they needed to see how it was going to do and then green light it, to me was just like, why?
Yeah.
Like, just say you're gonna do it, because it did exactly what they probably expected it to. And then they greenlit it, and now we gotta wait 2 years. It's like, just film the whole thing when you have all the actors there. It just seems more efficient too. Like, now they gotta come back together and film the rest of it. Like, that's weird to me too. Like, and so I don't know. That was a weird choice to me. If you're going to break it up, just film it all together and then release them like 6 months apart if you want. So you have time for it, because it's a money thing too. Like, you want to give it time to make whatever money it's going to make and then release the next one. Just do that. But like 2 years, like, this movie, like every review I saw that of people who really enjoyed it said that there's like, Yeah, I loved it. It's beautiful. Loved the characters, loved the story. Wasn't satisfied because it was,
Yeah.
it was literally half. It wasn't like one of those, it wasn't, how in like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Like that movie, the first Deathly Hallows movie is all set up. And the second movie is all payoff. And so neither movie works by itself fully. But the first movie ends with a really dramatic moment that kind of makes you walk out of the theater like kind of holding your chest, because it was like, dang, they went there and they did that. And then the next movie opens with a sort of fallout from that moment. And then you get so it kind of works if I have to wait, because at least I came away feeling something.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it was like when it ended, my wife was like, I was just getting into it because for somebody who's not connected with the material, you're still trying to most of the movie. If you're not familiar with the material at all, you're just trying to figure out what's going on and figure out what this world is. And so by the time you're like, okay, now I get it. Now I understand spice. Now I understand what the context of the Atreides are in this world. I understand what the Harkonnens' role is in this story. I understand what our goal might be. I understand this. Oh, it's over. It's like,
And I mean, I'm a huge fan of Denis. Like I think I love his stuff. Like he's just a dope director to me. But he does and this was sort of a thing that and I liked. I actually really dug Blade Runner 2049. But what I will say is, like, upon like repeat viewings, the first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that was tight." But upon like repeat viewings, even of that, I did notice. I was like, "Yeah, this is dragging quite a bit." Like, I like slower paced stuff. Like, I prefer things to take their time, establish, let me know what's going on, who everybody is. I have no issue with that. I do feel like because it's an incomplete film, you kind of got to get to stuff a little bit maybe quicker, I feel like. Just because like I said, it takes its time sort of establishing things, but it kind of gets to a point where it just drags for, like, there's a period where I'm just watching and I'm kind of looking at my watch a little bit like, okay, where's this? Where are we going? Like, from here. And then, like you said, by the time it gets to the end, I'm getting into it and I'm like, oh, okay, that's it. You just kind of feel sort of like, I'm just kind of dissatisfied. It's not a bad movie at all. It's masterfully done. Like, it's beautifully shot. But I can't help. I just felt disconnected by the end of it. I was like, I'm just not into this 100% like I'd like to be. For those reasons. Like, I feel like, like I said, it with it being incomplete and just how much it's just kind of belaboring. It seems like the same thing for a while. And I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't dislike this, but I'm also not super into this either. Like, I didn't walk away from it being like movie of the year. I walked away from it like, yeah, I like that. Like, that was cool. Like, I'm curious to see what happens next. Yeah. But I wasn't like, I just gotta, that was my favorite movie. Like,
there's so much that happens in that second half that will, if executed the way his track record tells me it's going to elevate the whole thing. It's going to make it really work.
But I was just thinking, like, that moment. So he kills Jamis. And that's like, I feel like one of the things that's hard about the source material, and you noted it, Chris, like there's all kinds of, or like in Invisible Man, there's all kinds of stuff that takes place in the mind, right? And Lynch tackles that with voiceovers, which feel a little corny, right? Like, you don't, like, people aren't doing that anymore. So they're like, you're sort of left to sort of see these big consequential points on your own. And I think that his killing Jamis, that was a big deal. He's never killed somebody. And it was like, it's part of this, like, this thing that he's terrified of, which is like people are committing atrocity, like violence being enacted in his name. He didn't want to kill him. He didn't even understand that he was supposed to. Yeah. And there's like Jessica's response, like she's all shook because Paul's like 15 or whatever in the story, just killed a man. And like, it's not clear necessarily, like she's upset, but I could see somebody completely missing that she's upset that her son he just became a killer.
Right.
And this is his beginning of his transition into this new persona that he's going to inhabit. And that is relevant and potentially weighty and a potentially good place to cut, but it doesn't quite come across.
Yeah,
I agree. I didn't feel it. Like I didn't like exactly what you just said right now is what I like kind of feeling in the moment was like, I don't know. I see that this is supposed to be something important right now, but I don't. My brain. I see it, but I'm not really fully connecting to what I'm seeing. Like it's not really doing anything. I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's also, I don't remember if this is in that moment or later, but Paul weeps about killing him, and they question, you know, they culturally, there's this disconnect around him wasting water and like that whole piece. And like, that was a way to illuminate why he felt the way he felt. But you would have, I mean, in the context of the film.
Yeah. In the novel, it's like he sheds a tear and everybody's like, look, Usul, or that's his, or he picks it. I don't know if he picked the name already, but so his name within the siege is Usul, and then his name that he chooses is Maudib, and they're like, look, he gives his body's water for Jamis. Like, it's like a sign of respect, and it's looked upon favorably. But it's this really kind of really important moment in his becoming what he's going to become, and it just doesn't come across. You know, and I feel like I don't know how how it would have been accomplished without a voiceover, but
that's a part of the medium thing. Like this was known as one of those books that was supposed to be unfilmable, like in a lot of different ways. And I remember when I was reading, I was like, I don't. Before the movie came out, I was like, I don't know how you film that. I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm not a professional director, but I'm just imagining. It's like telling somebody, all right, take this painting and turn it into a song. It's like, okay, well, what does it? You know, what does that mean? Like, I don't know. Everything is not a one-to-one sort of thing, and I think some of that stuff that you guys are saying probably just works better in print than it does like actually trying. It's filming it, you have to do a lot to explain stuff visually. You have to do a lot more.
Well, it's in when you have like characters that evolve through their own kind of mental internal processes, like it's challenging. Like, here's a good example of something that kind of, so Darth Vader, right? Like it's not adapted from a novel or anything. And if you watch that film, you know, most people's biggest criticism is the fact that he turned so quickly. Like, some people have done like minute counts of like from him like saying goodbye to Obi-Wan to when he's like, I am Darth Vader. And it's like 12 minutes or something of screen time that he's not even all in. And but like, I was, you know, when that movie came out, I was deep into the Star Wars lore, and I read there's a couple of books that kind of, even the Revenge of the Sith novelization. And if you read that book, his transition like kind of makes sense, like the way they sort of go through his mental processes and what he's thinking about and what is motivating him and what he's actually thinking. Like, they actually outline in the book that his turn to, you know, the dark side was meant to be sort of him his attempt to manipulate Sidious and to say like, yeah, I'll do this for now, and I'm gonna, you know, do this and this. And he's sort of constantly checking off mental boxes of like conceits that he keeps giving, like, sure, I'll kill this guy because this matters more, but I'm gonna do this next. And then he gives up something else. Sure, I'll do this now. And you don't see any of that in the movie. You just see him like getting nasty with
in the movie. Yeah, that would have been fire.
Him slaughtering children.
But you're not gonna see that, right? Like, you're not gonna see him like go off to the side and like have a voiceover.
A Shakespearean.
Then it turns
Right,
into
right.
like it turns into anime at that point.
Exactly.
Like, I'll just do this
Exactly.
for now, and then later on I'll figure it out.
Right, exactly. And it actually maybe it would work better as an anime, but like
Yeah.
but so it's hard to communicate mental character evolutions and stuff in film, period. And so a lot of times, to me, what works better, and I think that speaks to your point, Miles, about TV as a medium now being so elevated, because like Breaking Bad, talk about a character evolution communicated well on screen.
Mhm.
Like, but you had 5 seasons. Like you got to see him go through thing after thing and make choice after choice, where you start, you question his choices, but you also understand why he's making them. And like, before you know it, you're like, wait, am I rooting for the bad guy? Like,
Yeah.
It feels more earned too that way,
Yeah.
because they've had the time to sort of spend to establish this person as, you can kind of see where he starts, and then you go on the journey for however many years. It feels, in literally years we're spending with them, because the seasons are coming out each year. So it's not the movies, things are just harder to pull off because it's less believable, because I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm taking my own meta things that are existing. Like, okay, I know this movie's 2 hours and they're telling me a story in 2 hours. How you gonna change in 2 hours? It's not 2 hours in the movie, but in my mind, I'm sitting here like, man, how you go from this to this, from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock? It's like, and it's hard to remove that out of your mind. And it's done, it's been done. Like it's possible. It's just hard to do when you have a limited time. Like the Eternals movie was like that, where a lot of characters didn't really get to their fair share, just because it's a lot of characters and it's not enough time. So you kind of gotta you know cut certain stuff out in order to make the movie get to the end of the movie. But
my favorite sort of film, not my favorite, I guess, but one of my favorite film kind of character arcs of somebody going through a change on screen is probably Michael Corleone, Godfather. And again, but see, you start that character somewhere. So here's the thing, like, I think part of the adaptation process, when you have to kind of capture that change, is maybe in the film you have to start in a more, you can't start as far over in a film as you can in a novel. Maybe like Michael Corleone, when you first meet him, he's not like this kind of peppy, like good guy who then falls. Like he's already like, he just doesn't want anything to do with what his family's doing. And the arc is that he suddenly becomes the guy. He's not just in it, he's now the guy. But what's effective about that is like, that's easier than him being like, let's say he was started out as a cop and was actively like, you couldn't communicate that in a film, but you can communicate if he's just like, you know what, I'm gonna just stay over here, I don't want anything to do with that. And then things happen that drag him in. And then he like, has something happening to him that causes him to take agency over it and say, you know what, fine. And then he does it. That works to me. But significant character arcs where there's a lot happening in their heads, like, man, that's hard.
Yeah.
It's not, it's like what's his name, like Caesar from Rise of the Planet of the Apes becomes Caesar at the end of War for the Planet of the Apes in the first movie, you like, hell no, like how you get all the way from this to, what I'm saying, like it's not enough time for him to become that. And you kind of need more parts of this. He has to go through, he has to live. And the problem with, and I think that's why people are starting to gravitate to TV more, is because we're getting more into characters, and the characters don't have time to live necessarily in maybe 2 hours. And maybe you got a long, Denis likes doing longer cuts of movies, but even in his longer cut of the movie, there's still maybe not even enough time for the character to live for us to feel like it's natural for them to progress into whatever they become by the end. Like that's why I was like, man, Dune would have been a super fire series. Like,
yeah,
it's not bad. I don't mean that to be a knock. It's not a bad movie at all. It's actually excellently put together film. I just think it'd be better as a series.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have been happy with that. Something, something along the lines of Game of Thrones level production values and
Yeah.
that level of, and even that got rushed at the end, like they were, finish it up,
Yeah.
There were seeds planted earlier on, but it, definitely just kind of jammed through at the end.
That was a mess. I'm sorry. You know how I'm usually like pretty forgiving of I'm forgiving of the Star Wars prequels, y'all. Like, so I'm forgiving of like story flaws but it was, to me, my issue with Game of Thrones was that it was so like obviously kind of abandoned in the like. It was just like, okay, y'all did an excellent job of storytelling for several years. And now all of a sudden, like, what this is happening? It just felt like they were just like, yeah, hurry up. It was like, it's like if you were putting together a puzzle meticulously,
Yeah.
1,000-piece puzzle, and then you got to like the last 5 pieces and just grabbed them all and just threw them at the puzzle and left. And you're just like, why would you do that? Like,
or just jammed them in with your fist.
Right.
like, whatever. You know what? I'm tired of doing this. I'm actually bored. I have a hot date. It's like,
I wonder what that story. I don't know. Honestly, I think for a long time I was like, he's gonna finish those books. Like he has to. I don't think he's gonna finish those fucking
that
things at this
man,
point.
he's definitely gonna die before the last book comes out.
Yeah, it's just like, what is it? What and I've read all of them, and I can't even remember what number we're on now. Is it like the 6th one or something?
Everyone, apparently the wait is for the 6th book, and there's 7 books.
Yeah.
So what's gonna happen is he's probably gonna drop the 6th book, but that 7th book,
I don't know, man. I don't even know about that.
Wait, if I'm not mistaken, didn't the 5th book come out before the series started?
I can't remember.
Let me look it up.
That's talking about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the 5th Game of Thrones book came, or the Song Ice and Fire book came out before Game of Thrones the series started. The series is over.
Yeah.
So I haven't watched Game of Thrones. Is it based off of a book or
series of books?
The books are, yeah, and as much as I did enjoy the show, even like the shitty parts, like I just rewatched the Long Night. I really like that episode.
That's a good episode. I mean,
even though it's dark as hell.
Turn up the brightness.
Who's that? Yeah. But I just rewatched that and I was like, oh, that was super fun. But what was I gonna say? Totally lost my train of thought. Help me out. What were we talking about?
Game of Thrones and how you liked it, but based on books.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I still gotta watch it.
But the books are, I was gonna say the books are fantastic. Like from the very first one, I was like, oh man, I'm in this, and like so much. And I know everybody's like, oh, there's so many characters. You don't even know how many more characters there are, other characters that are not even in the show, and characters where they took 2 people and kind of built them into one character for the show. There's just so much more. So I'm not sure what they're gonna be like. I don't even know. He's been working on that 6th one now for years.
10 years. So the last one came out in 2011, which was during the series had started by then.
But just barely, because I was
right.
Because I was pregnant when it started. It was like March or something. Of 2011. Yeah.
He needs to stop.
Do y'all? Is there a show or something that like you guys have watched where you feel you were satisfied with the ending? Because I feel in most cases, not all. I don't think it's ever.
It's hard to stick.
It's hard to end anything that you've been doing forever, however many years. It's hard
I have 3 shows
to be satisfied. Yeah.
3 shows that I can think of ever that satisfied me from beginning to end. Actually, 2 from beginning to end. And that's Breaking Bad and The Wire.
I knew you were going to say The Wire.
Both of those shows have
Yeah.
5 seasons. I think 5 is the sweet spot.
Yeah.
In the last season of The Wire, there's some iffy things about it, but like they managed to me to stick the landing. It's not satisfying. There's stuff. The show is intentionally not
Still
satisfying,
cohesive though.
but it's cohesive.
Yeah.
And like the honorable mention is Parks and Rec, because I just love Parks and Rec, and the ending to that show is phenomenal. But the first season of Parks and Rec is kind of trash, so I can't say from beginning to end. But that's a show I could watch.
And Breaking Bad the same, like just from beginning to end, there's a full complete arc.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
Great
there's
show.
crazy shit that happens in that, you know, that story too, where if poorly handled could have been like, what's happening now? What are the rednecks doing? You know, like there's all these people that are thrown in.
Oh yeah, the psycho redneck dude.
Yeah, that actually worked. It seems like that wouldn't, you know.
But it does, and
but it does work. Yeah.
On paper, psycho redneck sounds like a bridge too far, but
yeah. I think about that, and I'm like, man, there's shows that I, you know, started to watch and got into, and where I'm like, man, I liked it. And I'm not one of those people, like I got friends, like they'll watch a show, and then if the last episode they don't like, they're like, man, that was trash. The whole show was terrible. I was like, but you was into it this whole time. Like you just
that's hard for me. That's actually hard for me too. Like I actually have a hard time. Like Game of Thrones, I was trying to think in my head, like, would I rewatch Game of Thrones? Because I was so dissatisfied with the ending. I don't know. I don't know if I would actually. Like I'm in my head, it's like, at what point do I stop? Because I don't think I would sit through those last few episodes. I don't know. Like
I gotta watch this because I just keep hearing the worst about it.
I mean, no, you should definitely. Here's what's weird. I do recommend it because it's just so much good. There's so much good. There's definitely way more good than bad. It's just that, unfortunately for me, all of the bad is like the last, I'd say, honestly, really just the last 3 episodes. The last 2 seasons start to have some storytelling kind of things where you're like, this is getting a little quick.
A little dicey.
Like, you're right, but I was still on board all through season 7, halfway through season 8. There's one episode, there's one moment, and Tawny knows what I'm talking about, where I think everybody just fell off, where they were like, wait, and it doesn't feel earned. There's a character turn that happens. It doesn't feel earned. And you're just like, okay, I get it. I get that this was always supposed to happen. I get that this was probably part of the blueprint for the show, but you did not do a good job of making it believable. You know, people actually like wondered, you know how you see something happen in a movie and you start theorizing about why it happened, and you think you're supposed to theorize and you're not. Like, there's a scene, basically a character who you've kind of been on their side sort of flips and does some crazy stuff, and the way the show, the episode is constructed, you hear like something, is it like bells or something like that, and people were like, oh, there must have been a magic spell attached to the bells that caused them to do that. And it's like, no, they just made a choice that didn't make sense, and you're trying to rationalize it by saying magic happened.
Yeah, it happened too quick. No, for sure. People do that all the time. Yeah, it happened too quickly. Like I think
too quickly. Yeah.
Again, the scene was
Anakin
there.
all over again.
Yeah,
how do you do that in a show though? Like you got time. It's like what?
In the last season, it's just like they were trying to finish it up. Like I don't know what the deal was. I don't know why that happened, but it just like it was
the creators wanted to do some other stuff. They had gotten a deal to do Star Wars stuff. They had gotten a deal to do other stuff. Okay. And that's, I mean, they haven't come out and said that, like, we were just trying to wrap it up. But like, that's sort of what people have guessed about why it felt so rushed, because the conversation for a long time was that it was going to have like 10 seasons or something.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it was going to have 8 seasons.
And then the last season only has like a tiny amount of episodes.
It has
Was it
less
like five
episodes.
or
Yeah, yeah,
six or something like that?
yeah. It was
Yeah.
weird. It was weird.
I could imagine that if you
Yeah,
worked on something for like 7 years or whatever, and you're kind of like ready to, you're
I
not a
guess.
fan of it.
But
I mean, you think about it, like you're doing something for whatever a job for 7 years, and you're just giving it to people. You're not just consuming it every week. You're behind it. You're close to it. You're
right.
writing it. You're there. You're rehearsing it. You're there constantly, and you kind of got an opportunity to like
Do
pivot and
something
do
big.
something
Yeah.
else. You're like, let's just wrap this up, like, and get this done so I can move on to something
This
else.
just
I mean, because as fans, we're like, how could you do that? But as a
right.
creator, you're like, listen, man, I've been doing this for however many years. I'm ready to do something else, man. Like,
I mean, I
it's
can
like,
understand if what you're doing is like, Big Bang Theory, but like, it's Game of
I
Thrones. Like
mean,
this is like the biggest show
but
on.
this, but I
Yeah.
mean, that's coming from the perspective of fans, though. It's like that's
That's
not the
true.
people that's
That's true.
creating. That's like,
Yeah.
what's his name? When Andrew Lincoln was like, "All right, I'm done. I've
Mm.
done this enough. I'm out." And
He was kind of right to do that though. I would
I mean,
say.
he was, but
Yeah.
the fans are like, "Yo, come on, man! Like, we want to see, you take this
Yeah.
to the end." And it's like, I have a family, I have a real life.
And
I know you guys like this show, but I have a life, like a
you
real.
know what though? Like I would have actually see in that same vein, what would it have looked like for them to pass it on to someone else then? Like, I think that is more like, yeah, you want to. So here's the thing: they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They wanted to be done with it, but they also wanted to be the ones to like do it. And it's like, okay, but you're doing a disservice to a story that, like, if I spent that much time on something, I don't know, man. I would want to have it kind of like, there's no way they sat and read those scripts and watched what they did and thought, yep, that's like the chef's kiss. That's the there it is. Like, not after, like, it was just such a markedly different vibe where I'm like, this feels rushed. This feels like y'all
I
was
mean, we also don't know like what was happening behind the scenes with
like HBO and stuff.
Yeah.
it's all types of stuff that occurs behind, like when you go and like see behind the scenes of movies and you see like how they got made, and like you watch the films, like, man, those people, they hated each other, like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's like you don't know any what happened,
That's
what's going
true.
on
That's
behind the scenes.
true.
We never know. It could be
The
something. It
cast
could be a,
was
yeah.
the cast, like, somebody cut together a video of the cast being asked about the last season while it was airing, and it's just so it reminds me of that video that people put out of Mark Hamill talking about the Last Jedi and how like he obviously hated everything that they did in the movie, but he couldn't say it vocally. And they were talking to the cast and like, Peter Dinklage and Kit Harington, all these people, like, they kept asking questions and they would respond in ways where it's like, yeah, they wasn't feeling this. This
It
is
had to
something
be
Kid
something
Harrington.
going
Yeah.
on. It's got to be something that was going on
There's a
behind the
story
scenes.
there.
Like mommy and daddy weren't getting along or something.
Right,
So then
right.
everybody else kind of got it.
We'll find out in like a few years. Somebody will do this big
A
reporting,
tell
like
all,
big,
yeah.
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 I mean, I think, yeah.
And I'll
I mean,
be there.
it's tough though when you watch a show and there's a few like that where you're just like, man, this could have been. I mean, Walking Dead's another one where, if you just they had the opposite problem, like continue to have the opposite problem, I should say,
It's just
which
like a
is that they
completely
should
different
have
show
they
now.
should
Yeah.
have wrapped it up.
It
Like,
feels me,
I just
yeah. I tuned out of that like around the fifth season. I think there was one of those weird like mid-season, like the half season or something. And I was like,
yeah.
this doesn't feel like, it just felt like it was meandering.
It's a formula now, and like
Yeah.
the last Miles and I were talking about this last season that they're in the
It's a
final
different
season of the
show.
show, and but they're doing spinoffs, so it's kind of like not the final season. But they this first third, I guess, because they're doing it in thirds. Yeah, it's like a different show. Like it's filmed different. it doesn't look the same. And then there's like there was this episode. Tawny, okay. So Walking Dead has officially introduced monsters into the universe.
Okay.
Like just, and the reason I say that is because they
Like
basically
Cookie Monster?
had a People Under the Stairs episode.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Like legit. Like so there's a character who is deaf who enters this house, and in the house is just these people who live inside the walls. And they're under stairs. And they're very pale, and they have long hair, and they crawl around all weird, and
they're friends with fools.
They jump out of things.
Right.
And
they crawl around all weird.
It's they crawl around all weird. Like, and the all weird part is like, okay, this is The Walking Dead, right? Like, there's zombies and there's humans. These people, like, they crawl like, you know, like the girl in The Grudge.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Sorry, my cat's starting to do shenanigans.
This door just blasted open behind me, like my patio door.
It's the people under the stairs.
Yeah. Like,
they heard you talking shit.
They heard me
What you saying? What?
Crawling
you
over.
talking real strong a minute ago. No, but they crawl around like the girl in The Grudge, you know, like we're like weird and jerky.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, what is happening? Like, why? Like, what is the explanation for this? Like, okay, like in the context of this universe, it's been about what, 10 years? Like, why are these people like?
Why are they Morlocks?
Why are you all the way a monster now? Like, why are you a whole monster? And like, they like, I don't know. It was like, so on its own, if you look at the episode on its own merits, it's actually really pretty well done. Like, it's pretty creepy. It's probably one of the creepiest things they've done.
Mm-hmm.
But within the context of the Walking Dead universe, it's like, why is this? Yeah. Why would this ever happen?
I mean, I guess they're following just the context of the people under the stairs. Apparently, if humans just go away for a while and like go outside, they just turn into monsters. Like, that's kind of if you guys don't leave the house for
that's right,
a couple years, you just turn into a monster.
The people under the stairs had those weird like Neanderthal brows.
Yeah.
You know what? It kind of tracks because, you know, during quarantine, people got real weird. So, and that was only like, you know what I mean? Like that was.
They didn't get pale though, and like, you know.
I mean, you know, you give them another
another year. If we had one more year of just isolation, like we would get up one day and be like, man, I'm about to start walking on my hands, man. I'm tired of this.
Just to change it up.
We'd be like doing this, but being weird. Like we'd be like doing the stream, but just be like, it's like why? Like what?
Like just moving extra.
Oh my god. No, Walking Dead's another one. I mean, in terms of, you know, shows, yeah, it is very few that end that stick that ending. Like I really liked Boardwalk Empire when it was on. And I watched, it was 5 seasons, and it failed in the ending. Like, it really dropped the ball in the ending. And I was just like, and I remember talking to people randomly, like sometimes, because not a lot of people watched that one, but they all said the same thing. It was like, man, that show, man, it was all right, but that ending, you know, like, and up to that point, it's a really good gangster show. It's good, like, kind of the storytelling was cool. Mm-hmm. And then they make this choice to like make the final arc kind of be this main character getting his reckoning for something he did earlier, which can work when constructed well, but they didn't construct it well. Like, stuff didn't make sense. Like, he kills this guy in season 2 or 3, and the final arc is essentially this guy's son coming back after him. Now, the problem is that they don't tell you that the character is the guy's son. They kind of leave it as a surprise. So this character shows up in the last season, And throughout most of the season, you're like, why are we seeing this guy? And he doesn't have a big role. He's just there in some scenes. Like he doesn't have an arc at all, like a story. He's just there in some scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And then like in the last frame, literally like last scene of the series, this guy walks up and he's like, and he says his name, and you're
My
like,
name is
oh, that's
Inigo
who that
Montoya.
is.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, that. You killed my father, prepare to die.
Yeah.
And he kills him, and that's it. And then the kid gets dragged away. But it's just like, but like you didn't like I didn't know who this kid was through most of the season, so I didn't know where this was going. I was starting to get bored. You kind of wrap things up vaguely, and then you have this thing happen, and that's the end of the whole show.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what lesson did he learn? Like he didn't, because he never knew that this guy was like,
yeah,
you introduced that halfway through. Maybe you hide it for a few episodes, and then it's revealed, and then there's some sort of, force of nature thing happening between these two, and maybe he falls then, and you feel something about it, but you don't just anyway. Like that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing what happens when you try to construct an ending that wasn't there before.
Mm-hmm.
Like that can really hurt a show, because it's just like, as a viewer, I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to suddenly be invested in this new thing you just threw in and try to pretend was new. Like, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
So sorry for my Boardwalk Empire random rant.
I mean, I think we're all just more like picky and a little highfalutin in the way we watch TV, Like
Did y'all watch Dexter?
I watched Dexter, but again, I just didn't watch the last season. I kind of had tuned out. I watched
I never watched it.
I watched it all the way up to the last season. I was like, I don't care that much.
Dexter got kind of trash in the last couple seasons.
Yeah.
And now the revival, they brought it back, and it's it's the thing where they try to get it back to its roots.
Yeah.
I hate when like studios try to do that, like we're rebranding, we're getting things back on. Like, shut up, no, you ain't. Like,
you just want money.
Yeah, right.
It's so like, that's the thing. You can't go back to, like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say we're continuing a story, but we're also taking it back to its roots. Like you just, because the characters evolve. And so why would this character suddenly go back to what they were at the beginning of a series?
Yeah, that makes no sense. They tried to do that with The Walking Dead. It was like, all right, we're back on track now. We understand. Like we'll say everything except we know the last season was trash.
They'll never say that. Yeah.
We'll just be like, yeah, we're just going in there, a new direction. It's fresh, it's new. It's like, so you're saying that the last season wasn't good then? Like, I didn't say that.
Just say it.
That's not what I said. Like,
don't twist my words.
Right. But yeah, it's like, man, at that point, it's like, yo, just end the show. Like, just come up with a new idea, man. Like that we can get invested in something else, because we're not invested in this anymore. Like I was kind of into Lost for a while when I was watching, and that just went way the hell off.
I was a big Losty for years.
That got really weird. Like, in the end, like,
I never got into Lost. Like by the time I started getting interested, people started telling me like they wouldn't like that. It was the last. Was it the ending people didn't like?
There was like a writer's strike that happened like right after during the second season or something, and that like derailed some shit. And it just felt like it felt like there were all these big ideas there. And I think sort of as a viewer, I don't think a lot of people are watching this just for the philosophical questions that the show is presenting, because that's what that's ultimately like, that's what the show was about, was like this, like, what is the reality of like, in order to satisfy the audience at that point with all this stuff it had thrown at us over the years, it would have had to answer the question of like, what is the meaning of life? And a show just can't do that.
Especially not Lost.
Yeah. And so they gave us something
Network
else
TV
instead, like some weird, that weird, like, alternate universe, and they're all hugging in church or whatever the hell happens. It's been a long time since I watched it. But it's just like this is like it's ending on like this weird metaphor for what their lives meant. Like their lives meant
Oh,
what their relationships meant. You
interesting.
know, the answer was like all of you were important to each other, so you get to be together in eternity. It was just it was
Yeah, that shit
trying.
was weird, bro. Like
Yeah,
they missed with that one. That was a
I
swing
just
and a
want one
miss.
show
yeah.
to have like the characters at the end just turn the camera and tell us what the show was about. Like, can you imagine? You imagine if like after Walter White got shot down, like he just stopped and looked up at camera and said, "This was my reckoning for the things that I did in life. Like I made choices along the way in which I disconnected myself from my family and lied to myself, telling myself it was for them. Really,
Right.
it was for me." And it
Like,
just like ends.
oh, okay, yeah, I get it, yeah.
It's like it is funny how I mean, is Lost where J.J. Abrams got his kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
reputation for the whole like mystery
Mystery
box thing?
box.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty much because there was a ton of stuff that was there that was like, oh yeah, what is that? And then when you find out what it is, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't put it back. I didn't
Never
even
mind, never
need
mind,
this.
never mind.
Yeah, forget it. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Well,
This certain like,
it wouldn't have felt so disappointing if there were like if the questions, if any like sort of major questions were ever really answered and they just weren't. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't know if that like I think and I what I was hearing was like, oh, the writer's strike like really fucked things up and they didn't know how long the show was gonna last. And I think there's something to be said for, you know, like for a limited series for like cutting it off, like you guys said, 5 years. Like shit can't just go on indefinitely and still be satisfying as a story. Like
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
nothing.
not. Yeah.
Nothing work. I don't even understand like why. Well, I get it. Like when you're just like an exec and you
Well,
see money and you like, hey, this generates money. Let's just keep making it until it doesn't make any more money. And you
yeah.
just like The Simpsons. It's like, why is that still on? This is not a good show. It's so
I
far
mean,
removed from what it
I,
was once
I
upon
would
a
say
time.
like there's a catch 22 of choosing to do serialized storytelling too. Like episodic television can go on like The Simpsons
Yeah.
does, and it's like you can just throw it on and catch an episode, and it doesn't matter
Yeah.
because it's all sort of each episode exists some to a certain extent within its own little vacuum. But when you're doing serialized storytelling, yeah, you gotta have a beginning, middle, and end. You can't just I think about something like there's a lot of people who love like Star Trek. And
Hmm.
I think what worked about Star Trek is the episodic nature of it.
Hmm.
Yes, there's sort of overarching serial things happening, but you know, Star Trek is like each episode has its own thing where you can just pop in and see what's going on. You know, it's
Yeah.
generally like that. And so it makes it more accessible and it can go on longer, and the conflicts, you know, it's just but when you're talking about like something like Walking Dead or these kind of
Hmm.
shows where there's a journey that's happening. It's like, well,
Yeah.
then where does the journey end? Because
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
but me, even both of those to me need to end at some point because after a while, there's no show that's been going on for 17 or 20 seasons where it's in its 20th season and it's excellent. It's just as good as it's always been.
right,
It always
right,
falls off at some point because you run out of story. Like Law and Order is like that, where each episode is something different. They're
yeah,
solving a case each episode. But the new Law and Order is terrible. It's not good. It's like they can keep doing it, but after a while, it's like, yo, you guys just run out of ideas.
it's
You're
true.
just keeping this going just to keep it going.
Yeah,
And I get it, it makes money and everything, but no story should last that long. I don't care if it's like
I would
one
say,
long, consistent
yeah,
thing, or if it's just sort of like almost anthology, like where each episode is maybe
Mhm.
something different. It's like at some point you're just doing the same thing over and over again, where
Yeah.
it's just like, come on,
yeah,
man. Like it has to end at some point. If you guys have been doing this for 20 years, it's like, come on, man. End it. Because it's no way season 20 is hidden like it was back, in the show's inception. It's just not
yeah.
because you guys are just you found a formula and you just, it's the Marvel thing. Like when we first saw Iron Man, it's like, oh man, this is okay, this is cool. Like they figured out how to, make this look dope. And then now when you fast forward to now and like, all right, this I've kind of had enough of this. Like, yo, like, I mean, they could keep making them. Yeah, and some of them will be
It's like
decent.
if you,
Some of them will
it's
be
like when
good.
my in-laws, there's like this thing where when they find out like our kid likes something, like Ezra likes Beyblades, they find out he likes Beyblades. He just gets hella Beyblades all the time from everybody. And it's just like, because they know he likes these, right? And they like get every stadium and everything. And then it's just like, all right, like, yeah, I did like it, like I like other things, like,
Yeah.
and it's kind of that, like, you just like, oh yeah, you like this, you like Walking Dead, I got Fear the Walking Dead, I got Walking Dead in the World Beyond, I got the 3 Walking Dead movies starring Andrew Lincoln. It's like, all right,
I got
man,
Dead Walking. I got like, yeah.
it's just, it's, you got to know where to cut the faucet
You gotta
off.
cut it at some point, man. I get making money, I understand it, but like at some point it reeks of just greed in some kid. Like the Walking Dead is a perfect example. I don't know anybody who likes Fear the Walking Dead. It's an awful show. It's terrible. And I haven't even seen most of
Is
it.
it
And it's
still
just
on?
terrible.
Is that still on?
It's still on, yeah.
I don't even know how it's on because all I see is how poorly reviewed it is, like on a weekly basis. Like people just hate the show.
Fear had one good season, and then it just
season 3,
completely,
man. Like season 3 was incredible, and then they just the following season they're like, man,
they killed off like half the cast and just
they didn't even
to
explain what happened the last.
They needed to make room for Morgan, so they killed off half the cast, brought in Morgan, and then like changed the whole show. And it was like, all right, I guess I'm done. But yeah, no, I agree. Like, another one that I thought, another show that I thought had a good, from start to finish was good, was Battlestar Galactica, the newer.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Had some wacky stuff in there, but overall,
yeah,
it was
like a Star Trek for me. Because I never could get fully into Star Trek because there wasn't enough, at least from what I watched, there wasn't enough actual conflict going on that was kind of high stakes conflict, I guess. And Battlestar Galactica had that, and I like the whole Cylon, who's a Cylon kind of thing, and I thought that was cool. Yeah, and the way it ended was a nice little kind of twist to how how it ended. So yeah, I mean, yeah, again, I think that was like 4 seasons, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
So that's the sweet spot, man. Yeah. About 4 to 5 seasons, and then dip out, man. Bow out gracefully, man, because that's enough for you to go from one place with a character to another place with a character. The problem happens is once you continue past that point and you see a character have a full arc, but then they continue to try to tell stories about that character, it makes no sense now, because now they just have them doing whatever at this point just to continue to tell stories. Like, this person already went through a full transformation. Like, I don't want to see them go through another transformation. Like, if they would have continued where Walt survived at the end, and then he got rushed to a hospital, and then they fixed him up, and then he just kept. I don't want to see any more of that. Like, as much as I love that show, like that's like probably my favorite show. Like, I don't want to see any more of what he was gonna do after. That's why I wasn't really super into the El Camino thing like that. I feel like it was kind of, I didn't need it. I don't know.
El Camino was that was like an extra thing. I like Better Call Saul though. Like, I mean,
Better Call Saul is dope, yeah.
And that's a good sort of use of a character, right? Like, Saul was kind of on the fringes of most of the story. He was never, he was kind of a flat character really on Breaking Bad. So then you have an opportunity to go back and make him a round character, and I thought that was neat. And I actually like the new characters too. Like,
but that's
spin-off type stuff. That's rare. I'm like,
but that's good though, because that's, like you said, that's a character that wasn't as developed, and we get to see an arc. Not Walt or Jesse. I don't need to see anything more with Jesse. I've seen everything I need to see. He literally goes from one place to another place
Mhm.
like completely, and you go with him on that journey to see more after. Like, where's Jesse at now? Like, I don't know. I don't need to see that. Like, why?
Yeah.
No, it's yeah. But well, I know Tawny's gotta wrap it up.
Oh shoot, it's already 7:50.
Yeah, I was watching the clock for you because I didn't want you to get yelled at by
No.
your
Yo, man.
significant other.
My partner. I always say the word partner reminds me of like cowboys
Partner.
and shit.
I know.
Yeah.
You gotta say like T.I., you gotta say partner.
Partner.
Cap on mad tilt.
Right.
Yeah. But this was fun, y'all. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's do more of this. Chill streams,
Chill stream.
talking stuff.
Like I said, I wanted to talk about my problems today, but nobody seemed interested in that.
You got a man, so your problems, you're getting through them clearly. Yeah, I got to see Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I know.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to go. I'm gonna try to go this weekend. I did not have time like this past weekend, but I'm gonna try to go, man.
The boys liked it. It was good. It's kind of a good it's a good mix of, I mean, there's definitely some nostalgia strings that they're trying to pull.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually really liked the new characters a lot, which helps. It's not like we're sitting around waiting, when we gonna see Ray? Like it's
We're right here. Wait.
Hey, I want to hear a Peter Venkman joke. Like, you're not sitting around waiting for that.
Yeah, that's good.
The girl, she's a really standout. Like,
oh, good.
She's excellent. She's actually on The Handmaid's Tale too, and I was like, man, this girl's like, she's gonna be a star. Like,
I like the trailers got me. I was like, oh, I kind of dig with this. I don't need the old kid. I know they're in there probably. I'm sure it's to some degree, whatever. I don't need that. I'm not a nostalgia person. I don't give a shit about that. Like, you're not gonna get me with the nostalgia. I don't care. So just tell me a good story.
It stands on its own. The nostalgic parts actually, in some ways, hurt it. But not to me I mean, I really like the original movie, so I was kind of happy to see some of the stuff they did.
Yeah.
But I could see where somebody like might be like, like
that's gonna be me. It always feels forced.
It will. When you said what you
Yeah.
just said, I was like, oh, he's
I'm gonna roll my
eyes
because I never care about that when they like, oh man,
I think
it's
there was
really
there was a point at which nostalgia was more exciting. Like, I remember going to see like the Phantom Menace and like being like, like every nostalgia hit was happening. But now there's like everything's rebooted, everything's done.
It's happening so much now.
We're burned out on it. Nobody's
and you're not.
Yeah,
there's no surprise to it. Like, when like you imagine if there's things that happen in this movie that if this movie came out 10, 15 years ago, you would get a big, like, people would be over the moon.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's kind of like you expect it. So you just gotta have to then decide whether you just like it within the context of the story or not. Mm-hmm. And I liked it within the context of the story. I just felt like I was like, I mean, it wasn't necessary. It definitely was. The stuff that's there is there as a treat for people who are fans of the original movies. Mm-hmm. But the story this one, in a lot of ways, at least the characters kind of stand on their own, which I liked. It was like, oh, okay, like they could actually do more with this if they wanted to, because it's not the same. Like, the setting's different. Mm-hmm. The context of the story is different. There is a little bit of a one-to-one in terms of the new characters to some of the old ones, where you're like, oh, he's kind of like the such and such of this. You kind of do that, but it's not so one. So
there's a black dude that just shows up randomly and becomes a part of it.
There's one kid. This is not really a spoiler. There's one kid who's like so obviously the Ray, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you're just like, okay, like it's a little Asian kid, and his hair is just like Ray's, like it's sticking up, and he has a podcast, and so he runs around with this mic, and it's the same way Ray used to run around with the.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, he's the Ray, and he's the most enthusiastic.
Yeah.
He's probably that's probably the most one.
That's the shit that get on my nerves. It's like, yo,
Yeah,
y'all really try.
Yeah, that was the moment, because I remember I leaned over to Jamie and was like, and then it wasn't until I saw that in him that I kind of saw it in the other characters, where I was like, oh, he's kind of this, but they were more subtle, like where, you have the nerdy scientist type kid, you have the over enthusiastic hype kid, you have the kind of future womanizer, you have the black one.
Right.
The black one.
You're just like, oh, okay, I see what you did. But they work kind of, especially the main girl. She just like, I don't know, her performance elevated the material too, because I was like, man, this girl, like, because on a Handmaid's, we just finished season 4 of Handmaid's Tale, and she's in season 4 she's introduced as a new character, and she killed it on there too. And this girl's like, I don't know how old she is, like 12, 13.
I gotta get caught up on that, because I've only watched like the first 2 seasons, I think, and I was into it. It's dope. I mean, Ghostbusters is a dope ass property. I don't know how you can't make that now and make it tight. Like, I don't understand. Like, that's sort of that's an easy one. Like,
I mean, because it's fun, and
it's
like,
fun.
Yeah. I mean, and we're in the era of we're still kind of at the tail end of the 80s kind of love fest that we've been in. And so it works. Like, it felt like a Spielberg movie, kind of the way, because they took it over with the whole farm setting and like the kids. Like, it felt like a Ghostbusters, almost like in a Spielberg type, you know what I mean? Which kind of worked. Like, it was fun. So I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, check it out.
I really would like to too. Hopefully, I don't have the kids the weekend, so.
Do they like Ghostbusters?
They haven't loved it. I think it's just a little bit, it's not like cartoonish enough, I guess, for them yet.
No, my kids were the same way. They like the new one. They did like the new one. So
okay.
Because it's more kid friendly. Like, it's just got a whole Paul Rudd, like, I mean, Paul Rudd alone is just like,
Paul Rudd is gold.
Yeah. he just wanders into movies, is Paul Rudd, and you just enjoy it.
It makes us all happy. I know.
It's so random. Like,
my daughter literally saw the trailer for that, and she was like, "Oh, Paul Rudd is in that." Like, she didn't even care about none of the
stuff. He's just like, he's naturally charming.
He has that effect on men and women alike, children too. Yeah.
Because he doesn't, like, I can't think of a movie I've seen where he hasn't played that exact like character. Like, it's just that all the time, and it just works for him. He's kind of, it's weird, he's kind of like, I mean, he's kind of like this generation's Bill Murray in a way. Like, how Bill Murray kind of did that.
Asshole.
Right. He's like a nice Bill Murray. Yeah. Like, he's not, you can't really say, oh, Paul Rudd's a great actor, because he's kind of playing the same part, but he picks the parts that work for his style and personality. It's like, all right, well.
Yeah. And I think fundamentally he's like a comedian. Like, he's just fun. Like, that's what he does best.
Yeah. It works. So all right, I'm gonna wrap up the stream. Appreciate those who popped in. I haven't really been looking at anything. Somebody did ask if we watched Watchmen, or if we like Watchmen. I do like Watchmen.
Yep, absolutely. The new the HBO is that.
I pretty much like every iteration of Watchmen. I even like this. I like the Zack Snyder film. I mean, to me, it was a poor adaptation in some ways, but as a movie, I enjoyed it. So yeah Watchmen. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you're joining us later on, throw us like, comment, whatever, share this stream. We hope to do more of these where we just hop on and talk about whatever we want to talk about. But if you have any suggestions for things to talk about, let us know. Otherwise, enjoy your holidays, and we'll see you next time. Now, how do I end this stream?
And